Oh, I guess no intro. We're just live. All right. uh, all right. What's up, everybody? It is Jace with Cosmic Origins, and I'm here with my good friend Joaquin of Esoteric Wisdom. We've been meaning to do a video together on my channel for some time, and this just happened to work out perfectly. He hit me up today, and he was like, "Hey, let's do a video about everything going on with Iran because we've been following it today pretty closely." And I know that he's got a lot of codes that he wants to share in terms of his spiritual journey and in relation to the lion. And the lion, the golden lion, is a big part of what we're seeing going on here with Iran. The golden lion being the original flag of the Iranian peoples prior to the current Islamic takeover. So I'll just set the stage real quick, catch people up, and then I'll throw it over to you. I'm assuming most people here have heard about what's been going down over the last day, but if anybody has been out of the loop in the news cycle, the US and Israel did a strategic strike on Iran last night. I caught it when it was happening around 1 a.m. and I was watching it unfold live. Obviously, it's been very controversial, and we're going to talk about that too. But it was announced that the Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. He came after the Ayatollah Khomeini, who took over in 1979 when they had the Islamic Revolution, which I have personal connections to because my mother's family fled Iran in 1979. And my grandfather was born there, my mother and my uncle were born there, my grandma was white from America, and so my mom is half, but they came here when my mom was like 8 in 79 because of the revolution. And so basically the Islamic regime took over in 79, and it's been Sharia law in Iran ever since. And so they've been very repressed. In recent months, it's really come to the surface more because there was a extreme amount of violence occurring against the people. Tens of thousands reportedly of people were gunned down in the streets by the Islamic regime military, and the Iranian people were calling upon America to and Israel, I guess, but specifically America to intervene, because it was getting to the point where, it was just getting so overt in terms of the killing and the oppression. So the Ayatollah is officially dead, as it's been announced. And I've also heard that several other people around him, military and family influence, were also targeted and killed. And right now, the Iranian people are overwhelmingly celebrating all around the world, from the streets of Iran, Tehran, the capital. I know Los Angeles right now, huge rally celebration, Washington, D.C., and we'll show some videos later on. But, just to kind of give an overview of what we're going to be getting into here, we're going to talk just a little bit about the controversy, about the energy, about what we think this shift is going to be all about, and going into kind of the spiritual significance of the Golden Lion, the history a bit of the Persian people and the significance of Persia, because Islam is not natively the people of Iran are not Muslim people historically. They're Zoroastrian, so we'll get into that too. But yeah, I think that kind of gives a quick summary, catch people up. So I'll throw it over to you, man. What are your thoughts right now, just off the top of your head, about what's going on in the moment?
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a huge shift that's happening with the whole Middle East. I mean, we can get into the fact that I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is a lot of, Trump's doing this for Israel and Trump's a puppet of Israel." And regardless of that argument being true or not true, not even getting into that, this is a win for the Iranian people and for the Middle East, because we're seeing a country that's been done in independent polls that it's not actually a predominantly Muslim country. So this is very rare in even recorded history. There's so many debates about even history being real, but in history where you're seeing one of the oldest civilizations actually overthrow or take or slough off basically Islam. This happened in Spain, And interestingly enough, like I'm Spanish, so this is kind of like
Mhm.
a funny thing. It's like, hey, we pushed off Islam, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like the just the fact that the people of the Middle East, in my opinion, are winning regardless of this whole and just how horrific it's kind of been. If you look at exactly like you said, like in the 70s and earlier, you know, Iran was this huge, I mean, it had such a bright future, and then it was just completely crushed by the sort of fundamentalist Islam, so that there's this push for it to be absolved in the fact that we're getting rid of this all this Islam takeover energetically, and we can get into the energetics too of it. I'll, I guess, go straight into that, where I've been really getting the download hard on the symbols and the animals of certain cultures always mean something. Like the symbolism of the, you know, the English actually do have the lion or the unicorn as their kind of binding thing, but you know, they have their unicorn in chains. That's a really good one to kind of get people understanding on a subconscious level. You know, there's so many different every different nation have different symbolisms and different animals, and almost like spirit animals actually are a part of the countries. And unfortunately, Iran doesn't have lions anymore natively, but they used to. In Greece and all of the Middle East, there used to be lions actually literally there. And one of the and we can get into this, is kind of diverting off, but it's still on point, where one of the main factors of, I think, of a light worker or spiritual person is what we're trying to do is put back the natural or the divine nature of certain areas back to where trees grow again. There's no more deserts, or if there's, you know, healing regions to where places actually would have lines again. There would actually be natural topography of Iran. So all of that being said, I think it's a really good thing then that we're seeing this shift. And even if people want to attack Trump about, oh, he's a puppet of Israel, all this shit, like this is still a huge win for the Iranian people. So
Yeah.
I think a
Yeah,
lot.
I agree. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to pull up the original symbol, the golden lion, the lion and the sun, which is what
Mhm.
was on the original flag of the country before the Islamic Republic took over. And you
Mhm.
know, under the Islamic Republic, they have like a different symbol on there that represents Islam. But the lion was the original symbol, and like you said, like the lions that used to be there natively, and so it dates back. I mean, Persia, ancient Persia, as many people know, is like one of the great kind of ancient empires alongside ancient Greece and Rome. And um, I think it's one of the like root races too. They're different than Arabs, in my opinion. Like I think it's a different root race, like a different seed from the stars. Not that any are, you know, greater than any other. They're just different.
Mm.
But they've always been a very like, you know, noble peoples. And like one of the cities that I've always wanted to go to, and I'll pull up a picture of it, that is really reminiscent of the old world in Iran, is Persepolis, which I think we've talked about that before, right? Is that from?
Uh,
Do you remember that
let's,
Persepolis?
let's,
So this is the one that this is the one that was really famous, that Alexander the Great came and conquered it, and it was the collapse of the Persian Empire. But it was the city that was at the height of the Persian Empire, and this is where you see like on Ancient Aliens, or you know, these various shows that explore like ancient history. I'm trying to find a good picture of it. Oh yeah, these guys, where they have the kind of Anunnaki style bull body. This isn't a great depiction of the body, but they have
yeah.
the bull body with the human head.
Mhm.
Here's a better side angle of it. Um, see if that can load. Come on. Okay, that doesn't want to load.
But
uh,
yeah, no, so much of these have been unfortunately destroyed. So if that there's some of these
here's a better.
statues still remaining, that's beautiful that they're still actually there. Because I know unfortunately so much of the Middle East has been you know, destroyed through terrorism, like all these ancient sites, and there's very
Yeah,
few
like when
left.
ISIS went in and took out all the big structures like that in Iraq, in like ancient Sumer, and destroyed all
Yeah.
the evidence. Um, Much of this has been destroyed, but yeah, luckily there's still like a bit of it remaining. They have these really tall pillars that were holding up this like huge hall in the past, and now it's just like barely the skeleton of it left. But it's a place that I've had past life memories of,
Mm.
and I don't get that like very often. But it's one of the few times that I've gotten like a waking non-dream like memory come to me, and I remember being in this city and like being in that great hall and looking out and seeing um you know how like when you look at you know, ancient Babylon today where it's ruins versus the past and it's painted in blue, and it was similar in
Right.
that way. It was blue, but it was more like light
Mhm.
blue, like baby blue and white. And in my vision of it, there were pyramids too, which there isn't any evidence that there were pyramids now. But I found that interesting, and I feel like it's one of those places that there's a lot of secrets to be discovered yet still. um so yeah, it's one of the places that I hope to visit if there is regime change and we're able to go and visit. And I think that there's going to be a lot that we're going to discover there about the ancient past, maybe secrets of Atlantis and other ancient civilizations.
I think absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so much in well, if you think about it too, there's so much in Persia, and you touched on it briefly, where this was a time period, the same time that Greece was going on and was rivaling it. They were there. It was Greece's rival, Persia and Iran, basically Iran now, and Iraq too. All of that was pretty much Greece's rival. And in Turkey and all of that, all of the Middle East was Greece's rival. So they had such an amazing um, ancient culture, ancient rich culture of for thousands of years. And I do agree with this too, where it's been said before, where there's this Islamic golden age. I don't think there was an Islamic golden age. I think it was, it's been said before, but it was a Persian golden age occupied by Islam. It wasn't actually this Islamic golden age that people said, because all of the great Islamic philosophers and stuff are coming out of Persia. They're coming out of, and all the science is really just a continuation of Persia and what was there before. So I would have
Yeah, well,
no
they
doubt
were
secrets
they
there.
were Zoroastrian was and Zoroastrianism
Mhm,
is the what we know to be the oldest monotheistic religion in the world.
mhm.
And it's my grandpa technically is Zoroastrian, but he doesn't like really practice or he's honestly more atheist than anything. But by blood, he's Zoroastrian, and that's always given me an interest in it. And I've always like really resonated, or at the very least, like kind of remembered this symbol, which I'm sure you've seen this, right? The symbol of the
Oh,
kind
absolutely.
of bearded guy on the I don't know if it's a piece of technology or a ship or an actual bird, giant bird being like in Lord of the Rings, the giant eagles. Um, but I think the Ahura Mazda is the name of the god figure that came to Zoroaster and kind of gave him the knowledge that then he went and spread Zoroastrianism. And it has a very classic kind of cosmic tale of like light versus dark,
Mhm.
in the way that, you know, a lot of ancient civilizations do in terms of kind of like the primordial force of darkness versus the primordial forces of light. And it very much echoes throughout like other religions. Um, so very few people now are Zoroastrian. Like majority of people that are religious in Iran now are Islam, but they're like the majority of the country, in my understanding, is not actually Islamic. They're, you know, kind of more neutral or you know, vaguely spiritual, but not like dogmatically religious.
Yeah, I think in my interpretation, and it's hard to really know because of all these, because the country is so locked down in the internal polling. But I think that what's going on is the Islamic leadership is controlling everything, and it's definitely not the majority. And I think people are just going more atheistic. But then people will then have some sort of cultural roots and heritage. So hopefully, what I would love to see is a return to this form of traditionalism. And also, what's so interesting too is that it's not an Abrahamic religion in the sense, even though it's a monotheistic sort of religion, it's not
Mhm.
a Abrahamic religion where there's all this drama about and interpretations and just like and for me it's and in my interpretation it's been the Abrahamic faiths have been very manipulated and crafted by elites and misinterpreted to, create division and stuff. So there's really not much globalist distortion in the ideals of Zoroastrianism. So I think that that would be a really beautiful thing if they could return back to their tradition, and there would be a country that wouldn't then be just either Islam or Judaism in the Middle East, which would be really, really cool to see if an actual return to the oldest religion in the world. It'd be beautiful. So.
Yeah. So this is if people haven't seen this before, this is the current Islamic flag. And what I find really interesting is like if you go online, and we're going to show some clips in a moment, but the Iranian people are overwhelmingly in the streets marching in celebration of the death of the Ayatollah. And they're all waving not this flag, but I'll pull it up, the Iranian Golden Lion flag that we were just talking about. This guy here. So, and on the flip side, there are protests, obviously, too, and mostly in America, from what I've seen, against the action in Iran. But it's mostly white people. I was looking carefully at the videos. I didn't see any actual Persians or brown people. It was like all white people, and they were waving the Islamic flag. So I think a lot of people, on the surface, we can kind of get into the political controversy more. They don't realize like what's actually going on in terms of what the Iranian people are asking for in terms of help, and that it's not an attack on the Iranian people. It's a attack on the repressive government that we've been talking about. And so you have a lot of, ignorant people that are thinking that this is like something the Iranian people don't want, and that this is like, they're trying to protect them. But in reality, like, they're out there waving the flag and like holding up pictures of Trump's face and like praising Trump. And, we can kind of get into like the Israel connection too, but a lot of people are critical of it because they think, Trump is a pawn or working with Israel, which definitely working with, but they think that it's, just kind of the agenda of the dark. And I made a really long post today on my Instagram account, which if anyone wants to go read the full thing, but I'll summarize it. But basically what I was trying to kind of bring into focus was that, we can argue all day, and I don't really have a strong position either way on if the attack, if the US involvement is quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. I think we like to make these things very black and white in the public collective consciousness, and people fall into tribal camps very easy. And so instead of trying to argue or join one side or another in terms of this is good or bad, like we should or shouldn't have done this, what I was really trying to draw attention to is like the fact that the Iranian people are overwhelmingly very happy about what is going on here and are in celebration. So let me, if you want to add anything in, but let me just pull up some of these videos.
I'm really thinking, if Trump fully pulls this off and there is actual regime change, I think this really might be one of the best and lasting things of his presidency, if we get to actually have regime change and it actually fully becomes an ally in a freedom-based sense, where it becomes this metropolitan country again, and it becomes a sort of a freedom-based country where it doesn't have this weird, almost like Afghanistan kind of connotation with it. If it becomes that, this will probably be one of my favorite things. It's going to be in the top section of one of my favorite things of one of Trump's presidency, because I think it's just, and I think it's just, he's under a lot of fire right now from the hating Israel camp, or we shouldn't get into war. But if you look at it from a future-based, and if you also look at it from metaphysics, this isn't exactly the same way as, creating a scapegoat like they did with they have weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East like they've done before. I'm
Yeah.
perceiving this is a freedom-based thing, because once we actually get rid of the regime change, you go back to something that's not Islam. The other ones, there was no not getting rid of Islam. The other ones, it was just, they got nuclear weapons, we have to kill them, and then we just have to suppress them, and then that would re-radicalize them and create all these trauma loops and shit. And there's, and then there's just like there's just so much corruption with all of that, where I'm perceiving this could really be a huge positive change for just Middle Eastern geopolitics. And it's not that it's just about the benefit of Israel. So just because something benefits Israel doesn't mean it's intrinsically good or bad. You have to look at it just objectively and then assess what the actual thing is. So if we're looking at it from that angle, yes, I think this could benefit the Israel, but it doesn't mean that it's bad in this instance, where I think Israel obviously has so much corruption, and there's so much potential connection with, like him and someone like Jeffrey Epstein, all these, there's so much corruption going on the swamp and the deep state sort of narrative there. So I'm never denying that. I'm just saying that if the Iranian people actually have a cohesive, collective country that's not controlled by Islam, I can't see how that's bad. And if it would, I just can't see how that's bad, because I see that, people forget that even though, Israel could be a very dangerous villain in the global, if we look at the globalists, Israel's definitely obviously up there. It's like the top thing, right? But just because that's true doesn't mean that then there's not the reality of Islam then being this mind virus placed on the planet too. And we could also kind of get into this as a minor little segue, that I perceive that the cube in Mecca and just the collective around it, on just the overall oppression of consciousness, where there's no art, there's no music, there's no, and just kind of the history of all of it. It's just been so de-enriching of culture that I can't imagine that this could be bad if there actually is regime change. So I'm very pro regime change. What are you thinking on all?
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
I'm not like a fan of Israel. I totally agree. There's a lot of corruption. I think that what we're seeing go on with Trump and the Israel alliance, if you will, right now, to me is a move in the chess game. And whether or not people believe in the 17th letter of the alphabet or not, like whether that was all true, one of the things that they said that I did feel was true was that they constantly said Israel for last, meaning Israel was kind of one of the things that would be tackled last on the world stage in terms of the corruption. And I think that they're using Israel right now as a piece on the chessboard, maybe not a pawn, maybe something else, but definitely, a strategic piece. And I think there's evidence of that. People will call Trump a puppet of Israel. And I don't see that at all. I think it's the other way around. And I think the proof in the pudding for that is if you've ever seen when Bibi comes to the White House, the way that they receive him, and if you study Trump's body language and their interactions, first off, Trump is like the only person that I've ever seen that will give Bibi the shoulder and not give him the level of respect that you see other people who interact with him give him. Like, it's very much you can see who's the alpha, you could see who's in charge. And to me, that signals, he's not a pawn of Bibi. But also when he comes to the White House, there was a great video, side-by-side comparison of when Saudi Arabia, when the royals came to the White House versus when Bibi came to the White House. And when Bibi came, they didn't do anything special. He just showed up in a car, shook his hand, went inside. They didn't make any big deal out of it. When Saudi Arabia came, I don't know if you remember this. This was like in the last year, maybe 6 months ago or something. They made a huge honorary spectacle out of welcoming the Saudi Arabian royals. They had military, they had color guard, they had horses. they had like a whole ceremony, and they have not shown that towards Israel at all. So to me, that's a proof that um, he's not a pawn of Israel, and that it's the other way around. And then what you were saying about regime change and like comparing it to Iraq and what Bush did, I think it's a very different scenario as well. I agree with you. Like, with Iraq, clearly a lot of manipulation. Clearly, the whole Osama bin Laden thing was a farce. They, whether it was for oil or for Stargates or whatever they were trying to get out there, probably all of the above. They pinned the blame on that region and then used it as a way to invade and put troops on the ground and go in and take whatever it was there that they found. And I think that does connect probably to like ancient technologies. And like when we saw in the Clinton emails, they talked about I'm forgetting the guy's name, Gilgamesh, the giant Gilgamesh, and they talked about like how they had located Gilgamesh's tomb, and that was in like the 2016 WikiLeaks files that came out. So I think it was related to all that, and it was an immediate excuse. 9/11 was to put boots on the ground and just take over and install our own government. What we're seeing here already is that they're Trump and Netanyahu are, and again, I'm not a supporter of Netanyahu. I just think he's part of the game they're playing. But they've both said, look, this is your chance, Iran, when we get done with, taking out the leadership and the head of the dragon, basically. They've said, this is your country. It's your time to take it back. This will be up to you. So it's very much a turning over the free will to them, setting the stage and then being like, okay, now it's up to you, the Iranian people. What are you going to do? And they haven't like threatened to put in their own leader or anything like that. And the leader that people majority want, that I'm seeing at this point, is the crown prince, who is the son of the Shah, and Shah it just translates to king. But the Shah was who was in power before 1979. He's passed on, but his son, Reza Pahlavi, is who they chant his name in the street, and they're asking for him to return. And he has been in exile since 1979 because clearly he was an enemy of the Islamic Republic, being related to the old regime. He's been in exile living in the United States for the last 47 years. And so they're calling for him to come back. And he's been very proactive as well about being like, look, it doesn't need to be me. Like, the people are wanting me to come back and they're chanting my name and all that. But like, we should have a democracy, and we should allow people to have the free will to choose who we want to run the country and how that system should work. So I agree. I see it as like a very different scenario than what we saw in Iraq. And I'll just share some comments here. So Synchronicity Show says, my theory is that Trump will flip on Netanyahu when everything's in place. And I think so too. I think it's when the time is right, when the rest of things, like Iran is so much of, they're the lead, the government is the lead sponsor of terrorism in the world. So like, that is to me, one of the big cornerstones of creating peace in the Middle East is, getting rid of that government and allowing things to kind of settle and find a balance again. They say, does Zoroastrianism have a textbook, or is their knowledge all contained within their architecture? That's a good question. I don't know if there's a book or not. I think there's like ancient scrolls and texts, but I could be totally wrong here. But yeah, I don't think there's like a centralized book like the Bible.
There's I think there's quite a few of their general text still preserved, but it's not in the same fashion, obviously, as like a cohesive Bible. We could get into just what I know about the religion, but I know that for a fact that it is the oldest religion. It's older than Hinduism, where a lot of people get that wrong when people say, "Oh, Hinduism's the oldest religion." It's not. It's Zoroastrianism, or oldest existing. Even there's potentially stuff before.
Well, monotheistic, I think, is the key. Like Hinduism being polytheistic, Hinduism might be older, but I don't know. I'd have to look up the dates. But it's said to be the oldest monotheistic, like one God religion.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's just the first to have yeah, basically describing that there's like one good God and you're orienting yourself towards it, and then there is a dark force. But what's interesting about it is that it views it as kind of a yin yang, but not really, where there's like an equally evil and then an equal good, and they're just battling it out. And it's just like we're a battleground. So it's a very much like it's like they're
Yeah.
literally playing chess. These two forces are playing chess on the board. Um, and
So I looked
yeah,
it up. I've never heard of this, but they do have a primary religious scripture, they call it, and it's called the Avesta. Have you ever heard of that?
yeah, yeah. I've heard of that. I should have remembered that.
I haven't even heard that before, but it says it's composed into two main parts. There's the Gathas and the Younger Avesta. The Gathas are 17 hymns believed to be composed by the prophet Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra. Um, these are considered the oldest and most sacred portion of the Avesta, so kind of like the Old Testament equivalent, containing
Mhm.
the core theological teachings. And then the Younger Avesta, being like kind of the New Testament, is a later collection of texts that include um, liturgical, I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Liturgical prayers, ritual instructions, myths, legends, and commentaries on the Gathas. So that also kind of reminds me of like the Talmud um versus the Torah, like how like the Talmud's kind of like the commentary on the Torah. Seems kind of
Yeah,
similar.
yeah. And also, what's interesting too is that so another part of the religion that I do know about is that they do have part of their temples and religion is that they always keep an ever burning fire, which is an interesting symbolism. But they
Yeah.
always have a fire in their temples, so they have like the fire's always being lit. And I know there's some very old fires in some very old temples in I think Persia. Still, there has to be a very few Zarathustrian temples that still are allowed to, I guess, exist even under Islamic rule, and they still have their fires going for like an absurd amount of time. I'm not going to try to guess how long it is, but they've been going on for, I know, a very long time. Some of them fires.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I know about because it's in the city that my grandfather was born in,
Yeah.
which is one of the oldest, one of the I don't it's not the oldest, but it's one of the oldest cities in ancient Persia called Yazd. And yeah, this is the fire temple where yeah, like they have the fire just constantly going. I
Hmm.
think supposedly for like thousands of years. I don't know if there's been
Yeah. Yeah. No,
interruptions,
like
but
literally, like it's like something absurd. Like it's supposed to be going for that long. It's like the people's job in the temple to keep it ever burning.
yeah,
But
interesting.
yeah, so I think it's yeah, regardless of um how I think this could benefit Israel and how people perceive it in that context, I think just the overall message download I've gotten from the topography region, and also the fact that I didn't bring this up either, is that this is the one day where all the planets are aligned today,
Mm,
and this happens. So we're on like the perfect astrological unity where all the planets are aligned. And yes, there's there's always stuff in retrograde and stuff like that, but um, that all the planets are in a visible alignment, I find very very telling and interesting, and I see it as a very good omen. And that the lines in symbolism have always been a a beautiful symbol, and how so many cultures obviously adopt it. Like we were in Japan and they adopted the symbol of the lion, mysteriously. And there's a hidden history, conspiracy there too. But Japan
yeah.
has the symbolism of the lion. England has the symbolism of the lion. Basically, every single country inside of the um, basically all of Europe and Asia and then parts of Africa have used the symbolism of the lion. So for me, this is just a huge win overall on a spiritual level, because and also then the spiritual community uses the symbolism of like the Lyran and stuff like that. And there's that symbolism. People come in, and sometimes people, get messages or past life memories and downloads of those type of beings coming in. So I'm perceiving this as a huge metaphysical, spiritual win. And just for the
Yeah.
fact that I also perceive Islam as such a honestly negative AI, like one of the main negative AI pieces to keep NPC consciousness at just a lower dampered level, that a country is sloughing it off. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I do too. Yeah, like I mean, like I was saying before, we can argue all day. People can argue all day about what's right and what's wrong, and of course, we never want to see war. Of course, people never dying is optimal. So I'm not a proponent of that,
Right.
but I do think things play out in a certain way for a reason, and I think the important thing to focus on here, especially now that it's already kind of said and done, is the people of Iran are extremely grateful and they're celebrating and they have a chance for renewal. They have a chance to get their country back. And
Mhm.
we have a real chance of peace in the Middle East as much as there is like kind of fear mongering about World War III starting. I really don't see it going that way. I mean, anything is possible. We are seeing, the Islamic Republic of Iran is lashing out and hitting a lot of high profile places right now. Like I got some videos of even Dubai, the
Yeah.
tower, the Burj Khalifa, is being hit right now by these are actually crazy videos, by
I,
drones,
yeah.
because they can get past the missile defense system because they're not like in the profile that the missile defense system is trained to fight. So now they're attacking all these buildings. So the Burj Khalifa thing is something that just I just saw before coming on here for this video, but I saw them hitting. There's another famous building in Dubai that looks kind of like sort of a sail from a boat. Let me see if I can find it, but apparently they call it like the only 7-star hotel in the world, so like super high
Oh,
profile, fancy,
yeah. I've
and
heard.
that was getting hit as well. Um, yeah, I can't find it here, but yeah. So they're
And
really lashing out and trying to hit all these American bases. Yeah, go ahead.
no, no, yeah, and I see that there's a couple big things. I think that this is a huge time for people who are watching this to understand the 5D element of it, and people who are fans of your channel are going to be like aware of the 5D-ness of just anything, and healing any entanglements or any karma you have in this, and kind of understanding. And if you're watching this, it's kind of like just you have a lot of awareness on sort of the issue, and also that we don't. And then you touched on it earlier with the World War III potentiality, not getting into the false timeline script that the globalists have created. So I think on one hand, you could perceive it as, oh, this is a false timeline script being presented, but we can always stop any false timeline and then create a positive timeline
Yeah.
by, because if this was documented, like Albert Pike did document this back in the 1850s, 60s. So this template of, oh, we're trying to start World War III has been around for like 150 years. This template of let's start this. We're going to try to have Muslims versus this, and this is, and then Nostradamus has talked about the Muslims in France and all this stuff. So this has been a concept that I think has been brewing and part of the timeline wars. So understanding that, trying, orienting your consciousness and understanding how powerful your consciousness, and orienting the positive timeline for your best interest, meaning then your interest is for peace, joy, and prosperity, sort of thing, where there's basically a timeline war going on between the dark and light, ironically, like in the Zoroastrian
Yeah.
context, and understanding that this is a pivotal point, and these next kind of years leading up to 2030, it has to be stopped, their globalist control, because they're going to try to create what the dark wants is to try to create a new COVID with AI and a globalist Islamic bullshit system, And what we're trying to do is, completely usurp their false usurpation and then return to a positive timeline. So I see it as a huge timeline war, kind of just awareness sort of thing, kind of getting into kind of an off. Am I making sense? Are you kind of getting what I'm saying there?
Yeah,
Okay,
I know
okay,
what you
good.
mean. Yeah.
Good, yeah. So yeah, just kind of making sure that we're on a positive timeline, and the dark agendas where they will script events, and they've been scripting things for forever. They talked about COVID before, years before it happened, all these sort of things. So understanding that if aspects of the dark and Israel want certain things, it's collectively being crushed, and that doesn't actually happen. Where we get into full scale World War III, we have a positive turnaround where the country of Iran actually becomes Zoroastrian or independent, where it's not a religious republic again. And yeah, I think that would be that's the main thing that I'm really seeing, and healing any aspects that you have in a greater context that are linked to any of this sort of conflict and these sort of false scripting. Because again, just for people's awareness, this they really have scripted this since the 1860s, really, and probably earlier, obviously. But it's been publicly known that this was right about in the 1860s, where this is how they're going to start World War III. They're going to try to create the conflict in literally where it's being placed right now, with the Ukraine stuff, with the Israel stuff, and then now with Iran. So understanding that this is, for lack of a better term, kind of like this biblical thing that they've tried to create, but understanding we can collapse their false timeline and have a positive timeline, and not get into this World War III system, dark AI control system that the dark agenda is trying to do.
What do you make of this comment? Donovan here says, can't help thinking about how the timing of this is connected to the blood moon lunar eclipse, which typically is used by the dark for ritual sacrifice on the blood moon. So what do you think of that, both in the positive and the negative?
And I think that's really good. I mean, that's I believe, isn't Trump born on a blood moon? I think is that true?
I'll look it up.
Okay. That's a weird question. I don't know if you can find that out. I think that's true.
That would be really interesting.
I do agree that is it's kind of like this.
It's true.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
He was born so June 14th, 1946, total lunar eclipse, which is a blood moon. Wow. Yeah. That's fascinating. That's crazy.
So hopefully I'm hoping that, obviously, the dark always tries to align the astrology and things to lean into their favor, but it doesn't obviously mean it's a constant, or things have to happen in that way. Just energy is bended in certain directions. It doesn't actually mean certain things. So I feel that, yeah, and we can go on Trump, because there's a lot of shakiness on some of Trump's stuff too. But regardless, I think that the dark ultimately is trying to, they're going to try to maybe, that's just basically part of the timeline war. They're going to try to instill violence and try to create a more, and also this is a fire horse here. This is the energy of the year is going to be pretty crazy. So trying to collapse that timeline just so we don't have these false scripting. But it's, I'm not, it's not good potentially. I think just if people are doing the inner work, the whole consciousness of the planet doesn't sort of get entangled, and then there isn't like these huge collective wars that we see. So I think a lot of it is, if the inner person is, I don't see a difference between the inner world and the outer world. So it's like, and a lot of people, or collectively, a lot of the energy is going to be so kind of crazy right now, and especially that we just kind of went into the fire horse here too. So kind of just calming your energy, meditating, and getting on things that are getting people to a different sense of awareness, where it's more on like understanding that oh, okay, stuff like telepathy, stuff like all these human abilities are real and that we have access to them, and everyone has this divine right to have these abilities. Getting these psychic abilities back is the main thing that we're collectively all trying to do right now, and not have our basically like mind energy be enwrapped and encased in war energy and all this and sort of conflict. So really, I guess just understanding and yeah, just basically just calming one's inner system so that it doesn't get into like this crazy conflict, and healing any of your potential. And this is then kind of advanced the sort of looking at like it from a big picture. If you have any sort of conflicts with then the symbolism of the lion or lion based um,
Mm.
timelines, Orion Wars, this sort of
Aaron.
system, the Orion Wars or these galactic wars and this whole Lush farm is just a like a karmic riddle and overlay on our matrix, and they're just trying to rescript and recreate the karma. And we can collectively, if we have the consciousness, we can just stop that and then just have a positive republic, and then have this whole republic just become a Zoroastrian freedom based country. So hopefully I explained that kind of well enough, and that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I have another thing too that I don't know if you've heard about this, but I think
Mhm.
you'll get a kick out of this, and I'm curious to hear your energetic perception of it. But there's a strange Pokemon connection of all things. There's a weird Pokemon prophecy, if you will, connected to this. So,
Yeah.
um, and there's some context with this for me personally too, because I had a weird experience. So, um, the day that this happened, yesterday was also International Pokemon Day. Okay.
Mm.
So that within itself, you could say that's a coincidence or whatever. It's just interesting. But on top of that, some of the original games for Pokemon for the Game Boy, and this applies maybe specifically to my generation. I know people watching is mixed generations, but when I was a kid, like my favorite Pokemon game was the remakes of the originals. And the it was called Fire Red and Leaf Green, and it was the remake of the original Red and Green.
Mm.
And yesterday they called it Pokemon Day because it was the 30th year, and which is my age too, which is interesting. It was the 30th year anniversary of the original Pokemon games coming out for the original Game Boy in Japan, Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green. So I didn't know that um, until later in the day, but that the night before that, I had a dream that I was playing Pokemon cards with a friend, and then I woke up and fell back asleep and had a separate dream that I was playing that Fire Red game. And then I woke up and my wife Alexa, she was like, "Oh, it's Pokemon Day," when I told her that. And I'm like, "That's so crazy. Like I dreamt about two different kinds of Pokemon games, never had anything like that before on Pokemon Day." And then the war starts that day too. But what the weird part is that, and I was trying to find the post, but I couldn't find it. But from what this post said, and I have to go back and kind of double check the dates, but apparently the original Fire Red and Leaf Green game that I dreamt about playing on that day came out the day that we invaded Iraq. And then not only
Oh.
was it Pokemon Day, the day that we attacked Iran, but it was also the day that they re-released those exact games on the Nintendo Switch. The Fire Red and Leaf Green game they re-released yesterday on the Switch. And so there's a weird parallel with like it came out when we invaded Iraq, and then it came out when we attacked Iran. So I don't know. What do you make of that? Is there any weird anything that comes to mind? Like, why is that happening?
Uh,
That's very strange.
that's absurd. Yeah. I mean, I'll actually really try to lock in and try to actually answer that question. Hmm. It's something to do with like let me see how I can articulate this. It's basically I'm perceiving it as like a weird it's like a sort of like I don't know how to describe it. It's like the energy of that or this or I'll say the synchronicity because I don't know if Nintendo's trying to be evil or the synchronicity. I don't think so. I don't know
Yeah, I
though.
don't think they would be. I don't get that they're like in on it. It seems more like
Yeah, it
synchronicity. But
seems more like a
why?
cosmic sort of like it's like there is like not just globalist things that are, always creating things. I think it was a cosmic thing. Um that it's like a cosmically synchronistic. Like that is actually I think something actually a minute point that needs to be said too. Like not every like hidden thing is like always globalist stuff. Like there is like the God or the Matrix is doing synchronicities. Anyway, but the how I'm seeing it is like I don't know why the gaming energy and war energy are tied together, but I do see that as a thing.
Well, look what
The
Alexis just put
and
in.
obviously, and then I think it's the colors here too. Yeah, boom. Where I think the one thing I wanted to say before you asked that was, the one thing I wanted to say was the fact that these are Christmas colors, right?
Yeah.
So Iran Iran has Christmas colors, and weirdly, that's with psychedelics. There's association with the Christmas tree and psychedelics, and also then other than Zarathustrianism, there's also this huge Mithra connection here too, which is in astrological religion or mystery school, and kind of that was that's another conversation to get into Mithraism. But how I perceive it is that that's the real magic, and you're tapping into real magic, and why the collective I guess loves Pokemon so much, or why it's resonated with stuff. And obviously I love Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and stuff like that. And why these sort of like card games, video games, sort of this weird like creature, like why it's
Yeah.
permeated the consciousness in such a way
They're like
is,
elemental kind of.
yeah, I think they're like a way for us to connect with like a 3D way for you to like a normie can kind of connect with a spirit being but not perceive it as it. It's kind of like the perception window of connecting with a spirit being or understanding that that's a real thing that's kind of happening. They're not really privy to, so then it's more of like it's more of like you can perceive. It's like, oh look, I have this thing. So it's kind of like a bridge to the spirit realm almost for people
Yeah.
to kind of get to. um so weird though about the war energy and then like the gaming energy at the same day, that the games are released the same day. um I don't know about the what's the flag of Iraq? Isn't that like black and red and white or something?
Of
I don't
Iraq.
think colors. Yeah, Iraq, because it was both years, right? It was Iraq and Iran. It's weird. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I don't know. Yeah, the weird that the gaming energy is tied in with the
It is
um.
red and black. Yeah.
It is red and
The
black. Yeah, it's Egyptian. It looks kind of like Egyptian or something. Yeah, I don't know other than that. Other than I think it's just like some weird divine timing thing. Where
mhm.
it's globalist, but it's more like just I don't know, collective consciousness, the gaming and the Pokemon align then also with the globalists trying to create conflict and people trying to create conflict and releasing of
Yeah.
conflict. So all these sort of things, it's kind of a weird synchronicity thing.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
yeah, I agree. I don't think it's like that there's directly some kind of like a conspiracy with like Pokemon is in on what's going on with Iran. But
that's the craziest conspiracy. Yeah.
right? But like of all
Next
of
level.
the kind of like mega franchises out there and how evil we know some of them are, Pokemon
Right.
has always been to me very pure, and I think it has done a net positive for society in that sense of like there were so many good lessons, kind of for kids in that show. For that, I grew up on Pokemon. I know a lot of kids did of that era in different generations as kind of it grew. But I remember like I was there kind of when it first started. I was like 4 or 5, and I always wanted to grow up to be a Pokemon trainer, like in real life when I was like 5. And but I did, yeah, like what you were saying, and I think there's like an elemental aspect of it too. And so maybe it was just kind of a weird balance of polarity, like, you know, Pokemon 30th anniversary on the day that this happens, those other synchronicities, like maybe it's just one of those weird, not purely coincidence, but like kind of a way that things in the collective that are of the light balance out things that are more of chaos and kind of can be seen as disruptive in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I guess, my final kind of piece on the Pokemon thing, it's like, I think people just, they want the elemental or these magical beings to almost be physical, and it's literally a game where you can basically interact with them. And it's actually a game that kind of represents people's unconscious, where they want to have like this pet dragon, and they want to have like these magical sort of creatures.
Mhm.
This There's this connection with them where people have a connection, I think, really to themselves and the greater universe, but then they're just playing a video game, and it's kind of like they don't know why they like it, but there's just this collective like feeling of, that it's magical, and it's kind of bringing magic back. So I do see Pokemon as like this um, magical
Yeah.
force, as a collective unconscious force.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
yeah, um, yeah. So I know, yeah, Israel's going to be very happy about it, but I don't think that that's resulting just in a net negative. I think that that's a very like kind of idiotic take to just, oh, since Israel likes it, therefore it has to be evil. It's just like,
Yeah,
you
there's a
know,
name for that kind of thing. I don't recall what the name is, but where it's uh like a correlation causation kind of thing, but that's not the exact phrase. There's something else that's similar to that. But basically that what just because something benefits one group doesn't mean that it's inherently done um as an act or in alignment as a generalization with what that group wants. So yes, Israel did want that, but also the Iranian people wanted that, and there is a unification, eh, what and in all these instances, we're not talking about the people, right? It's like the
right,
governments, right? So the
exactly.
people, I've seen so many posts from Iranian Jewish mixed people who are
Hmm.
either mixed themselves and have a mom and a dad each from each culture, or they're like a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, where one's from each culture. So I think too, in the spirit of the law of one and everything being one and the unification and how, no matter what happens in the world, we should seek to understand how we are one and how we're connected and how we're, it's only the illusion of separation that we see. And I see that as a big theme coming out of this, that the peoples are more united than ever because of this, regardless of what games the governments happen to be playing. Just because the governments may benefit or not benefit from a certain scenario doesn't inherently mean that it's bad for the people. So there can be mutual like benefits there, which is I think what you're saying as well. So this is an interesting clip from CNN because obviously CNN doesn't want to kind of, report on something that could be seen as pro-Trump, but
The largest Iranian populations.
this was a clip of CNN reporting on the marches happening in LA specifically and how
Hmm.
they are like, are celebrating it. And I haven't seen a single instance of any Iranian groups. And I said this in the beginning too, but for those that are kind of joining more recently, I haven't seen a single instance of Iranian people protesting what's going on. The only
Right,
protests that I've seen are
right.
being done by more leftist, typically white Americans or, you know, in other countries. I haven't seen protests in other countries, but I'm sure they're going on probably in Britain and stuff too. But the few that I have seen in America, it's like they're not Iranian Persian people. All the actual Persians are out there like grateful as heck and celebrating and wanting regime change. And it was interesting to see, like, you know, a big company like CNN kind of have to report on it because, you know, they have to stay relevant. They still have to report to a degree on what's going on, even if it's not in their interest. But also interesting note, CNN just got bought out by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, who owns CNN, just got bought out by Paramount. And I don't know if you heard about this, but like for the last couple of months, there was a struggle between Netflix and Paramount on who was going to acquire Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers has like all these different franchises from like Harry Potter to
DC,
CNN.
right?
And say again?
DC, like Superman, Batman.
Yeah, DC.
Yeah.
DC. There's like dozens and dozens of IP that they own. So what I didn't know that I learned is that Paramount kind of has a more Trump-leaning stance in terms of their leadership. So that's interesting to see too, now that like literally CNN has been bought out by a company that kind of goes against what they are, you know, kind of the propaganda that they're trying to push. And I was seeing that like the reporters were very upset about that. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out too. But Paramount also owns like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which Joaquin and I are always talking about. So Paramount, now it's going to be like Paramount and Netflix as kind of these two big media giants that are in opposition to each other. Netflix has a lot of dark stuff too. I mean, there's, you know, mixed bags and everything, but especially the last few years, like Stranger Things and like a lot of like there's a show called Lucifer on there. Like there's a lot of dark kind of occult themes in the Netflix show. So it's interesting to see that kind of play out and people wake up to that as well.
Yeah, I think interestingly enough, you bring up Dark thing. The TV show Dark on Netflix was actually, I think, one of their best shows. It was a German show about time travel, and I think that's so
I've been
funny.
meaning to watch that actually. Is good?
I won't spoil anymore. But
Okay.
people should actually. It is I think foreign things are generally actually better as kind of like a film snob sort of guy, but I think it actually is very, very good, and there's so much disclosure in it, and there's so much like. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's like, yeah, it's German time travel. And it's like, and we know the Nazis were obviously, you know, doing that sort of thing. So I think it's just ironic that they have a whole show about German time travel.
Yeah, I've heard from like people in the UFO circles and military insider type people, whistleblowers, that there's like a lot of legit disclosure in that show that's never really come out. And I think I remember seeing an interview with the creators of it, and shoot, I'm forgetting exactly what they said, but it was either that I think they said that they had taken, it was either that they took influence from real whistleblower testimony, or that they had some kind of more universal download experience. And then I think that's what it was. Yeah. So I think one of them had a dream, or it was something where it was like they had channeled it essentially. And then I think somebody in the know in a program approached them and was like, how do you guys know about this stuff? Like, this is, you know, real stuff that's going on. And then they were all surprised. They're like, well, we didn't know that. Like, we just kind of came up with it. So yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. It's a crazy show. Yeah, season 2's a little but then I think I remember season 3 being good. But anyway, but yeah, and then I think also kind of in the news. Do you want to cover anything else more about Iran, or do you want to kind of pivot on just other topics? What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, let me see if I have any other interesting videos to show.
Yeah, but I think that it's they have to show it. And I do think, again, that, you know, we can be criticized like, hey, like we can criticize Trump being, or whoever right now, saying, why aren't obviously the full Epstein files being disclosed? Why aren't these people being arrested? Right. That's kind of been at least my current opinion. But then, okay, this happens, and I'm like, okay, this is I think this is still a very positive, good move in the right direction, where it's like, okay, well, if we don't go into full scale war, and if we avoid that and we just have regime change, I think that would be a really good thing. Obviously, I don't want to get caught in some sort of full scale war. But obviously, yeah, the Epstein stuff is the other stuff that might have to be saved for another video, because there's a lot there. But obviously, Prince Andrew being arrested, that's, I think, a big win. Regardless of that, there's no arrests being made in the U.S. with the whole Pambani thing. I think the Prince Andrew being arrested, and we have Bill and Hillary having to testify and having to admit to knowing him is I mean, shit.
Yeah, that
it's
was
obviously
interesting.
not them being arrested, but it's something for me that's like, okay, there we go. That's
Yeah.
So I see things, especially with this cosmic alignment, that's definitely in the right direction. And I think also seeing how upset people are with, they didn't want to believe, I hopefully can say it on YouTube, but Pizzagate or all this stuff was real, and all these different things were actually Yo, Jace, what? No context. What's this video right here?
Oh, geez. This is I didn't even see this part of the video.
I gotta address that.
I just look up and there's some crazy shit going on the screen. No, this is
white liberals in New York City. Yeah.
This is one of the protests that's going on, but it was one of the examples of where you could see like it's all white people.
Yeah.
Like none of these people are Persian. It's all white people, and I'm not trying to call people out or anything, especially by race or anything, but like I think it is interesting when you have a group of people who are so into the narrative that they're disconnected from, and it's one thing, it's like protesting war, totally get that, but I think most of these people are not understanding what the Iranian people were like praying and begging for this, and like begging Trump to intervene. And it's been, 47 years that they've been asking America to like help them. And nobody else had done that. So that's why we're seeing like all these, the Persian people. I was arguing with my dad over text, because my dad is very, sees things differently than me. And they were like, saying, well, I don't believe it, it's propaganda. I'm like, show me just one video of Iranians protesting what took place. And like, there's none. Like I couldn't find a single, and they couldn't find a single one either. So yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think it being pacifist to a certain point, where this was, and also, it's being a pacifist, but then to a certain point to where I'm not, again, advocating for full-scale war, but if you can have regime change, and we can actually have regime change, that, geopolitically, that is so good for the future. And how I see, like, again, that's connecting then with, like the Pakistan-India conflict, that's connecting our connection with the Middle East. And there's so many different angles you can take from it, where it's like, I see that as a big win. And I see people not predicting that, okay, in the future, Islam is going to become a problem, if people want to admit that or not. And having countries that take back their original culture and not just adopt Islam, I think is a huge, huge win. I just see the Islam mind virus as something pretty bad that people either are ignoring or don't want to admit that that's really going on. And I'm going to keep hammering home this topic. And Jace, you get a huge shout out to Jace for putting this into my awareness, because I was always talking about how the Mecha Cube, and I see the Mecha Cube being like this weird vortex energy. And you brought up the fact that they go in actually the opposite way of the Hopi circle. So the Native Americans will go clockwise, but they're going counterclockwise. And I have a theory, and I'm going to create a video basically describing how I see in the future, how I see them actually distorting like the metaphysics of the planet. And it sounds a little out there, but people I think can kind of grasp it, where the worship energy and the distortion around, and again, this is again, it didn't always look like that, but there's Mandela effects and stuff. But the symbolism of the black cube has always been linked to Saturn. If anyone is familiar with Max Pierce, you understand that that's where, and if you read, I think it's like the moons of Saturn, that's where a lot of the dark system is actually being controlled from. Saturn as a planet has been usurped, and they've used its energy and clamped down the metaphysics of the planet. And again, the island had a cube symbolism. Masonry always has a cube symbolism. So this is going into
here's Epstein's island with the cube.
Yeah.
The temple is a cube.
Yeah, there's so much Mason symbol. I mean, we can get into the Mason symbolry of, there's always a cornerstone. There's a corner harpy on the there was on the Epstein his I don't know, building temple shit like that there, so that they always have all the symbolism, and it's not good. It's not good to just kind of give it, and it's part of the control and part of people's consciousness. And again, yes, the hat, the graduation hat is another symbolism of it. But yeah, it's part of the control. It's part of the warping of our consciousness, and having 1/5 of the population spin in the opposite direction, all vectoring on a certain point, is distorting the consciousness of the whole planet. And
yes, let me explain that a little more for people that are like don't know what we're talking about. So trying to find a good video of it so people can actually see. What do they call that? Do you know what that's called when they walk around
it? Up the Hajj. If you look up the Hajj, I believe you can see there's a really I forget how it's spelled. It's like HJ something.
Oh, HAJ maybe?
Mecca.
HAJJ. Or HAJ.
Mecca pilgrimage.
Oh, here's a good video. Okay.
Yeah, that's the video of it. Yeah.
So you can see, like he said, they're going counterclockwise. And in comparison, like he was saying, the medicine wheel in, I think, multiple, if not majority, Native American cultures have the medicine wheel. And you see them all around the Southwest, like in Sedona, there's a big one, not a big one, but there's one at like the stupa, if people have ever been there. But they always say in the medicine wheel, you always have to walk clockwise. That's like a golden rule of it, clockwise always. And what I learned in engineering school in physics is there's something called the right hand rule. And the right hand rule shows you when there is angular momentum, meaning when you have a force going in a circle, there's always a perpendicular torque force. And you can test this yourself if you get like a gyroscope and you kind of move it around. There's a torque to it. And the torque goes, if you take your right hand, it has to be your right hand, and you curl your right hand in the direction of the movement. So let's say counterclockwise, like at Mecca. Your thumb points in the direction that the tangential torque energy moves. And so in engineering, this would be used to calculate lots of different things, but it shows you that there's a perpendicular force that's generated to that circle. And so counterclockwise means that vortex essentially is sending energy up and out. Whereas counterclockwise, if you spin I had that backwards. Counterclockwise is sending energy out. If you flip it, you go clockwise, your thumb points down. So it's like drawing energy in or sending energy out. And I've never heard anybody else say this, but this was something that just to me seemed like it would be a carryover to metaphysics, between physics and metaphysics. So I'm not going to state 100% that this is like truth, but this makes sense to me that if you're having a momentum vector like that, like you're either sending energy to something. In this case, we're talking about the cube and Saturn and how, the Saturn matrix. And so to me, that would signal you're sending energy out, in this case to Saturn, or to whatever energy thing is feeding from that cube. It's sending it outwards. It's like sending loosh out, versus the clockwise medicine circle is like you're pulling in universal energy. You're like bringing in and grounding that universal energy. So yeah, that's super interesting to me.
No,
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining the physics element of it. And I think that that's been unfortunately a huge perception placed in our history, where through basically the Roman Catholic Church and kind of the whole Vatican narrative, they've really created a system where they've institutionalized their religion for the most part, and then created physics or science as this other system. And there's been so many instances of this control that they've placed out, and we don't want to correlate actual metaphysics to physics. But I don't know if I said it in this live stream, but there's so much stuff with like the telepathy tapes, or stuff like there's so many Qigong practitioners that's been known for forever, but it's becoming more into the forefront, where people are actually understanding psychic abilities and getting our psychic abilities back, people understanding that these are real, and displacing this entire dark system is very key. So just I think, I'm perceiving it as it's going to the moon first and then going to Saturn, and it's all part of this. But yes, it's going to the unconscious, and they're just I just perceive it as kind of circling it back to Iran, like that they're breaking away from the control of that sort of metaphysics of stuff taking energy and putting it out. I think is a really good thing. And just for people to have the awareness of the physics of how literally the Saturn black matrix cube works. And then obviously Israel does practice their own version, where they have like their wall, and they'll wear the cube on their head. So I think it's just for people's awareness on kind of how that system works.
And there's a lot of black cubes around the world too. Let's see if I can pull up like a list of them. But the one of them that really sticks out to me, and you've probably seen this one since we both grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But in Santa Ana, this is like the Science Center in Santa Ana. And I've been here a handful of times as a kid. And then when I learned about this, I'm like, oh my God, it's literally a giant black cube. Like it's the same thing. And I've seen lists of like, they have these like different node points where they have these giant black cubes in different places all around the world.
Yeah. And I have actually, I've driven by that. I'm like, whoa, I remember as a kid, I'd be like, yo, what is that? And it's like, oh, it's some science center. And I never went, but pretty crazy. And then I'm seeing someone in the comments saying that the cube is also a cross folded in up on itself also. So, and I do think that the symbolism, unfortunately, in Christianity has been distorted, and people don't perceive it that way. But I do think that is part of the distortion of the Jesus story, where this was basically a guy who was teaching magic. This is my perception of it, and teaching a lot of these things. And it was, and again, and it was someone who then was that idea of this person healing people was then taken and then completely distorted and used as a way to destroy native cultures, create a one religion system in the ancient world, and just destroy and have a justification to destroy, like, the Native Americans, and destroy all these people, where it's just a complete distortion of the story. And they use the cross as a symbolism, and the cross is then a symbol of control, unfortunately, too, and of sacrifice, and of this and of giving your energy. So I agree with that. The cross is unfortunately a usurped symbol also.
Yeah, well, I feel like definitely the Catholic, it's always rubbed me the wrong way and struck me as odd that they, the Catholics focus on Jesus in his sacrificial, worst dying state. And I understand their explanation of why in terms of the sacrifice of sin and all that. But I do
Mhm.
think, like what you're saying, that that's an inversion. I mean, if you were the dark and the Romans were the enemy of Jesus,
Mhm.
they were the ones who crucified him. And so of course they would want to take control of the energy of that religion and morph it into their own thing. And that's not to say that, Catholics are bad or anything. I think there's the
Mhm.
Catholic people are different than Catholicism as an organized historical entity. Um, but I think you're taking a person that you really look up to and that you want to honor, and you're showing them in the absolute worst state that you could.
Mhm.
And just that, to me, that's exactly what the dark would want to do. They would want to glorify. And to me, the whole idea of Jesus sacrificing, I've never felt that that was a true tenet or nature or thing that is virtuous in the worship or the relationship with Christ. I think that's part of the inversion, is glorifying the sacrifice of it. um and this idea of that he died for our sins and these various things, I think are ways of distorting what Jesus really taught truthfully and what he came here to do. But that being said as well, whether it's the cross or the cube or Saturn or the hexagon or whatever, like symbols, I believe, can be used for both purposes. Like, just like technology, it's not inherently good or evil. Like, I don't think the planet Saturn or even the moon are
Mhm.
inherently bad. I think they're just used and focused upon by the dark, but there's positive elements to them as well. Like in the Law of One, they talk about how Saturn is the location for the Council of Saturn and the Nine, which are like the governing positive galactic council body for our solar system. And that council body is located in what we would see as the rings of Saturn, but in like a higher dimension. But I think as well, it's like it does have these aspects of power and of intelligence that can be channeled and used by the dark for that purpose. And it's like that, like I see like Sedona or Mount Shasta or any of these kind of high energy vortex locations, as the same way, where the uh, there's a really good quote in the Law of One that they say the Law of One blinks at neither the light or the dark. So things kind of just are. And both the light and the dark are going to be attracted to high energy, high potency vehicles of doing magic, whether that's white magic or black magic. And that's why you have such a huge polarity difference in these sacred sites, um, or at least these vortex cities, or these chakra points on the planet, or whatever you want to call them. Like, you can do white magic and a lot of really good there, or you could do black magic and use it to corrupt and distort. And so I see it the same thing with Saturn and the cross and everything. Is it's like it's dependent upon how you interface with it. But obviously the dark has really been very effective at their interface with it. But they're still like, their numbers are still, I think, a fraction of the numbers of the light in any moment. It's just that because so many people are asleep, and those asleep people are in the matrix that the dark is set up, it's fed that power system, even if there are so many more light workers than there are dark magicians out there, just by the numbers.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think a lot of that, like, again, no, it's not all like all Muslims or all Catholics are all evil. I think it's in people's unawareness. And again, I agree with you that I don't think the planet is intrinsically dark. I think that there's been a corruption. And then once, if people are familiar, obviously, then with like reptilians, Drake reptilians, these type of dark entities come through and use them as gateways, or use them as gateways essentially. That's when there's the distortion. And then also the point too that the Roman Empire was literally, that is the globalists. That the globalists who have been existing this whole time, that is the Roman Empire. That's the Dark Egyptians. That's the globalists now. they're the ones who have been, so it's always been the same group throughout history. They've just always, taken on different countries or different mantles. But these are the dark group. And of course, if there's something that's light coming through, if there's light workers coming through, they're going to take the symbolism and they're going to try to distort it. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Donovan points out here, like the Olympic runners, which way do they run on a track? And I'm pretty sure they run counterclockwise, right? Isn't that track and field is normally done counter?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure like
secret Luch Farm thing I didn't even know about.
Yeah. And I mean, the Olympics obviously date back to Greek, Roman times. And, we've obviously seen all the crazy rituals that they do during the opening ceremonies of the Olympics over the years and how they manifest world events and do predictive programming. So yeah, that's something I didn't even think about. That's a great point.
That's a good awareness too. And I think, unfortunately, I used to love the Olympics so much, and I used to want to, I dreamed of being an Olympian and all that kind of fantasy. But I think it really is, it's kind of like a pride harvesting system too, because if you think about it, these people don't have any lives. Their entire mission up until usually 25, depending on the type of athlete, there's different types of athletes, right? But mostly it's their young adult life. Let's say they even live to 100, maybe they only live to 75 or something. So a huge portion of their life, maybe a third or a fourth of their life, is just dedicated every day to then just being the best and then getting this
especially
medal.
As a kid, like in your childhood.
You're a child. You're 100%. I mean, it's so rare where people get into the Olympics into their,
they train since they're
18,
like 10 or younger.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number of people who can become an Olympian is so rare, obviously, but then the number of people who then start at the 18, 19, 20 age is super, super rare. And they're usually just absurd genetic prodigies. Like in boxing, I think that does kind of happen where some people are like, oh shit, I can just punch super hard. And then they get a silver medal or something. That's the only one I'm aware of.
Cool. That's what, did you see that Alyssa Liu, who won the American, she was going super viral for the figure skating and winning the gold?
I've seen the memes. I don't know even I know she won skating, but I don't know what she technically did even.
So she kind of went viral. Their names are super similar and they're both half Chinese, but there was Alyssa Liu and Eileen Gu, and they went viral kind of together because they were both half Chinese, but American born and raised. But the Eileen girl went and played for China instead of America, even though she's doesn't even have an accent, born, raised in America. And people were looking at it as kind of a betrayal of your country kind of thing and a political stunt. And people were comparing their kind of, people were the Eileen person that played for China was very, very likable intellectually, but a lot of people were pointing out that she seemed kind of egotistical and kind of self-serving. Whereas the Alyssa person was very just naturally charming and was very much herself. And what I was going to say is she kind of broke the mold of what you're talking about, which I think is a good kind of switch in the energies of the timelines, because she was that kid who was being overworked, and they forced what she could eat and what she couldn't eat, and what kind of music she could skate to and what she had to wear. And so she became a world champion outside of the Olympics at 15 or 16 or something. And then she quit doing skating because she got so disillusioned with the control structure around it. And it reminds me too of I don't know if you remember this, but 10, 15 years ago in the Olympics, there was those group of the 4 or 5, they call them the Fantastic Five, I think, but they were a group of girl gymnasts, and it was Michaela Maroney and Gabby something. Anyways, there was a group of these girls, and they their coach ended up getting arrested because he was molesting them when they were underage, and he ended up going to jail for that. and it was a big exposure of that whole, you know, effed up system. So this girl Alyssa, she was like, there wasn't any inappropriate things in like that as far as we know, but she was part of that machine where they forced her what to do, and so she quit. And then she recently started doing it again, but she's like, I'm only doing it completely on my own terms. She's like, I'm going to eat what I want to eat, I'm going to wear what I want to wear, I'm going to skate to the music that I want to skate to, and nobody's going to tell me what to do. And then she went out and won the gold medal and like became this big viral sensation. So to me, that was like a good indication of kind of that timeline matrix being broken up,
shifting. Yeah, the usurping kind of this, like, you know, because the Spartans, as romanticized and cool as like 300 is, you know, they really were so brutal, and you know, you would have to like kill your friends to become a soldier. I mean, it was so crazy, the Olympics and the history of it. So yeah, you know, there's such a eugenics angle about it too, with the Olympics and with kind of the ancient Greek philosophy kind of coming into there. So I think that, I think it is a good shift, and getting out of the worship energy, this dark sort of people obsessed with winning and being the best, and this absurd perfectionism, I think would be a very positive stance if people then take that sort of route, like you're saying, where she takes time off, has the mental health piece. Because I know a lot of people do, just from kind of looking at this, like a lot of people have mental health issues because their whole life is around then just achieving this one thing. They win, and then they become depressed because their identity is around just getting this medal and being praised for their athletic talent just in one sport that's made up. These sports are all made up, you know. It's just a construct on a construct, just to have people be obsessed about you for a moment and to be better than other people in a construct. It's just and then you see it, you pull back, and it's not even about really the martial arts or stuff like that. It's a very weird sort of thing, where I like the martial arts where it's about like the inner growth, more of that element, and not really like the worship obsession with being better than other people and the hierarchy-ness of it. Like, I think the element, I think also touching upon is the hierarchy element of Saturn. Obviously that's what Saturn and Capricorn, all these sort of systems rule, is the hierarchy placement that then is imposed on people. And that is the entire structure. And this obviously ties into what you do, which is making people have financial freedom, which is the element of, that is the main element of getting rid of their system, is getting rid of this hierarchical, dark satanic structure of you're the goyim and then we're the elites, basically. You know, and even though that word is only in the Jewish context, that still applies to other groups that still use that same system of controlling people and viewing them as the lesser people and stuff, you know. There's so many instances that are, so.
And Synchronicity Show brought up here, since you brought up crypto and finances, he said, I wonder how the financial markets typically react to wars. And from my experience, it's not good because it's basically like anytime there's uncertainty in the world, specifically with wars, I've noticed the markets tend to go down, because the markets like certainty, right? Like when especially big money wants to invest, you know, they want to know with confidence that there's certainty in the timeline. And so, wars tend to be not typically good for the markets. But I was also seeing people who study markets commenting in the past couple, or just today, I was seeing it about how like with XRP in particular, that historically, before XRP really took off, there was usually some kind of big uncertainty event, like a war, that kind of was a last catalyst where the markets would go down for a moment, but then there's a really crazy rebound where they end up, you know, recovering and coming back and going to new highs. So we could see that too, just on the financial side of things with everything going on. This could be one of those moments. But we'll have to see. I think I did see that the markets didn't respond great to, you know, what happened today, but it looked like they were already starting to recover a little bit, which is a good sign for people that are in the markets. Actually, right now it's in the green, probably because this thing with Iran seems to have been kind of quick and clean, so to say, and not like this big drug out thing, since they got the Ayatollah like really quickly. So Bitcoin sitting at like 67,000, XRP's at $1.42. They're both up like XRP's up like 5% on the day. Everything's up like 4, 2, 3, 4, 5%. So yeah, just wanted to mention that since you brought up crypto.
Yeah, we should touch on that too, because I know you're not a super big fan of Bitcoin, and the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was implicated in the connection to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That was a huge, huge financial shift where that, I think, just, for looking at it kind of objectively, if people then, distrust Bitcoin and people then understand that Ethereum is also like a globalist connected backed crypto, you could look at it then, okay, well then the next best one, or literally the third next one, would be then XRP. So I thought that was just interesting.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like there was that particular email where they were saying that XRP and XLM Stellar were threats to what Epstein and co were doing, that it was a direct threat to their business model. So I think that that's even more like validation that, even though XRP can get hate for being, like critics will call it the banker's coin or the establishment coin, I've never felt that way. I've always felt like it was a Trojan horse and a transmutation of the system. And whereas Bitcoin is kind of pitched as a direct attack on the dollar and on gold and a replacement for those things, it's more of a warring energy. And now we know, backed by Epstein, he was a big funder in it. Whereas XRP is about connecting, like, and I think that within itself metaphysically is like huge implications, because that's the main difference between the light and the dark, is that the dark seeks to divide, it seeks to war, it seeks conflict, and the light seeks to unify, to create peace, to weave things together into one, into cohesion. And that's what XRP is all about. Is it's like, it's not trying to replace the dollar, it's not trying to replace gold. It is a good hedge against, the dollar and other things if you think they're not going to do well on the stock market. But ultimately, it's going to empower, like what it's intended to do is connect all those things and empower them and create this like interconnected web that brings them all together and makes them all super liquid and accessible to each other. So yeah, it's like we got the double whammy. We got, okay, Epstein donated to the Bitcoin Foundation like millions of dollars. We got that in November. And then we just got the one that was like, oh, and they saw XRP and XLM as a threat to what they wanted to do. And it's like, okay, fantastic. That's great. Great validation.
Yeah, I think that's it's just good evidence. And it's I think it's just it's horrifying. Obviously, you see like there's proof of him literally paying people off using Bitcoin, and then there's no implication of XRP and these other coins. And then obviously like Ethereum is like, I've heard it being said that it's like this pyramid, and it's like a globalist nod to the homage of the Illuminati style systems and the pyramid with like the dollar. The dollar has the pyramid on it too. So I think, it's actually, people saw, oh, crypto's being attacked, and it's kind of a slower cycle for crypto, but I think it's still a win for XRP, because it's like, well, Epstein's not using this. He's not using it. So
yeah, and not only was he not using it, but they were, like you said, straight up, it's a threat, and they're afraid of it, and it's bad for their business, is like the exact quote of what they said. So I mean, I saw so many people that kind of woke up just from that in terms of the alignment of things. And again, it's like, technology itself is neutral, but it's how it's used. And if there's kind of a dominating energy behind one that is pushing it in a dark or light direction, like that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anything else you want to cover before we
I think
start to wrap up?
I think this is pretty much it. I think we kind of covered the Iran stuff and the metaphysics side of it and the literal geopolitical side of it. I just think heal your any entanglements with any sort of Iranian lion thing and have a positive timeline. Don't get be aware of the dark that they try to create negative scripts. And yeah, it's crazy times.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Well, if you guys want to follow Joaquin Esoteric Wisdom, his YouTube channel is in the description down below. Go subscribe to him. And he's also got his website, which he's got on screen there, but it's also down in the description for a clickable link, and you can book a session with him. Do you want to just quickly cover like what kind of sessions you do, or
I'll
talk
do a
anything
quick
about what you
Yeah.
want to put out there?
Yeah. So I can do like any sort of really anything that's, I can always do this for people who, it's like if people just want to kind of know the future sort of thing and have it be a simple sort of psychic session, I can do that. But really, if you want to get into certain weeds, if you have a specific problem you're dealing with metaphysically or any sort of entanglement you have, I keep speaking to the Iranian entanglement with the symbolism of the lion and really connecting with your spiritry and how the symbols that you're connected with have a kind of this outer play where they'll have these different systems that will then, they could be have this some sort of basically cosmic entanglement, and this is why then we have illnesses. This is why then we get stuck in certain things. This is why people basically get diseases. There's always this metaphysical thing that then comes down to the 3D. We're multidimensional beings, and we have, the power of now, and that we have connection to all of our lifetimes. We have connection to everything, and I basically can go in kind of like an Inception, and I can help you heal any sort of entanglements you may have. So yeah, you can book a session with me, or if you just want to know any sort of what that kind of entails, yeah, you can just contact me at my email, and that's on my website. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that was
Cool.
fun. Let's do it again sometime, and definitely go follow Joaquin on YouTube and book a session if you feel called to it. And much love, everybody. Stay safe out there. Stay grounded. Stay connected. And I'm gonna play the outro. Hopefully, it'll work. It didn't work as an intro, but we'll try it for the outro. But yeah, everybody have a great night, and many blessings and much love. We'll see you soon.